Hello, Daniela. It's Carmine Gallo.
Hi, very nice to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. It is a real treat to meet you.
You too.
Congratulations on winning the Global Student Entrepreneur Award and for being featured on the documentary Own the Room. Have you been able to see it on Disney Plus?
Yes, yes, many times. With family, putting it over and over again, I have watched it many times. So it's a lot.
As you know, I write books about communication skills, public speaking skills, and presenting in all its forms. But this amazing pitch competition, the fact that you won this global pitch competition, is something that fascinates me. And when I saw the documentary, there were a number of very clever techniques that I think you used as a public speaker. And I'd like to talk through that because it's such an important skill for entrepreneurs.
Of course.
Daniela, when you escaped from the violence in your country, Venezuela, you entered the US and you were accepted into the graduate program of engineering at NYU. And
Correct. The
then,
PhD program.
so before we get into your research and the company that you co-founded, let's talk about this pitch competition, the finals of which were held in Macau, China. 2019 was the competition, correct?
Correct.
You had to go through a number of competitions, smaller competitions, before you entered the finals. So before we get into the research and the pitch, I'd like to break down the structure of the pitch. I need to ask you a question because I am so impressed. Where did you learn your public speaking and presentation skills?
Well, since I was very little, I was honestly like signing up to be like the moderator and the presenter at the little like events at school. So I was, like the 7-year-old who like learned by heart, like, now we have first grade with the, with the presentation of this dance and this and this. I love doing those things. Then when I went to engineering school, I was actually part of the model of the United Nations. So I was part of the delegation that, you have to constantly like pitch your ideas and communicate and negotiate with others. It was definitely not related to engineering, but I always enjoy being able to do that and to feel kind of like the excitement of being with all these people and, communicating ideas and going back and forth. And then when I came to the US and started doing the PhD and the whole company became my goal, pitching was just a wonderful thing to do. It helped me learn even more. I would say that I don't think I know everything yet, for sure. Every day I learn a little bit more.
And that's a good attitude. The CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, says it's better to be a learn-it-all than a know-it-all.
True,
definitely true. And when it comes to public speaking, writing, presentation skills, communication skills, there's always something new to learn. And in fact, I learn something new all the time, which is why I love talking to people like you.
It's true.
I'd like to break down your pitch. First of all, let's talk about the fact that you had to win multiple pitch competitions before you went to Macau for the finals. And then the final competition came with an award of $100,000.
The winner, all the way from New York City, Daniela Blanco.
This is a big, big deal. It's the world's most prestigious pitch competition. If you can recall your winning pitch, let's break it down, not the entire 10 minutes, but let's begin from the start. How would you describe Synthetics, the company you co-founded, and I've purposely not said a thing about it? How would you describe Synthetics to a person who's never heard about it? How did you open that pitch?
I do have a question before I can do that.
Yes.
Do you want me to describe the synthetics from 2019 in the documentary or the synthetics from 2021?
What a great question. I'm sure a lot has changed since I saw your pitch from 2019. Let's start from 2021. Look, if you were giving that pitch today, and you probably still are for potential investors and partners, how would you describe it?
So Synthetics is a startup company that helps chemical engineers develop sustainable processes faster. For that, we use machine learning. And we take away the need to run hundreds of experiments so that instead, as a chemical engineer, you only run 10 experiments and we make all the insights to help you find the optimal operating conditions for your process.
So it sounds like you gave me the big picture in just a few sentences. Do you find that that's an important tool whenever you're talking to, whether it's a pitch competition or investors, or anytime you're pitching your company or your idea? Walk us through the structure. Why did you start the way you did?
Definitely. So I have found that especially when you're working in science, I think the most important part about communicating your ideas is that you have to make them simple so that people can understand them. I think that it is a common mistake to think that the more complex or, the more complicated something is, the smarter you're going to sound. And that is not true. People only get behind what they understand. So that is why we always tell, the problem is that we need more sustainable processes and we need to develop them faster. That is very hard and it takes hundreds of experiments. So we have a tool that allows you as a chemical engineer to do that much faster, and we accelerate that process.
I noticed in the pitch competition, again, this is 2019, but you focused on, speaking of the process, you said your process makes it more efficient, safer, and renewable. To me, that's what I call the rule of thirds. You're not giving people the kitchen sink. You're giving them just a few features of the product or a few key ideas. Again, is that intentional? Is that part of the pitch process?
Yes, at the Model UN, I was always told that 3 was the magic number. Less than that, people might think like, oh, we don't know enough about this. More than 3, people forget. But if you give 3 concise reasons for why something is good or why something matters, that sticks in your head and people remember that.
What a great piece of advice. And there's a lot of science to back that up. I'm glad you learned that early on. It paid off.
Yes.
The pitch competition that we can see on Disney Plus, on the documentary Own the Room. And I hope so many students and entrepreneurs watch it. But you close with this statement. You said you asked the judges to support and make synthetics a reality for your future. You're speaking to the judges, your future, for mine, and for everyone else who comes after us. I like that. I think that's a technique where you're involving the judges. You're getting them invested. Again, is that part of the pitch process?
Yes, because I have always loved when people present and they make you feel like they're talking to you. Every time somebody presents an idea and they say something or they point at me and they make me feel like they're actually talking to me, I don't forget that. I don't forget the way that makes me feel. So every time I pitch, every time I present something, I always try at some point to engage the audience so that they feel that what I'm saying is not something abstract that doesn't touch you. What I'm saying is something that is a reality for all of us. And getting behind this and supporting this idea is going to help all of us.
You began the pitch in Macau by introducing your mom, who was in the audience. That got such a rousing ovation that I thought it was going to cut into your time. They just kept clapping. They kept clapping and clapping. I thought it was just a really moving scene. But then here's how you start. You said, my name is Daniela Blanco. I was born in tropical Venezuela. This sounds like a writer. I was born in tropical Venezuela, only daughter to this beautiful lady, my mom, who is sitting here with us today. And that's where everyone started clapping. I was 4 years old when I told her that I wanted to do science, but the good kind of science, the kind of science that helped people. Why did you feel like it was important to offer that anecdote, that what I call an origin story?
Well, this is actually something that I learned in this competition at the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards. This competition is not just about your business. You're not supposed to just pitch the numbers and the profit and the revenue. You're supposed to really sell yourself as an entrepreneur and show why you're doing what you're doing. I have to say that the first time I made, my first draft of the pitch for the regional finals in New York, I was trying to tell my story because they asked me for it, but I didn't want to give too many details and I didn't know what to say. It's uncomfortable for a scientist to like suddenly be vulnerable and open up and say things about your personal life to a room full of strangers. So I was really trying to like reconcile what I was feeling there. But the more I went through the steps of this competition and the more I also heard other people talking, I realized how powerful that story really is. Because we might all be doing something important, something that matters to us. But the why we do it, that is what ensures that you will keep going at it. As an entrepreneur, the journey is so filled with ups and downs that if you're not fighting for something that you believe in and that means something to you because of your story, then you're most likely going to give up. So I have found that since that presentation, every time I present myself or my business, I explain to people, maybe not that I am the daughter of a single mom lady, but I do explain to them, the chemical industry matters to me because I am from Venezuela. I always dreamt of being a chemical engineer who would go into the oil industry. Then I realized our planet will not survive if that industry does not change. So I committed my life to changing that. And I think that after saying that, people understand that I will not give up, that they can trust me to put 100% of my effort into making it happen.
Oh, that's fascinating, because what you've just done is using that origin story, and anyone who understands how brave it is for you to do what you do, and to come from Venezuela, that in and of itself, just that story gives us, the viewer or the investor, confidence in you, that you will overcome obstacles and hurdles that are inevitable in any startup. But it's that one story that gives us that sense of confidence. I'm really glad that the entrepreneur competition stressed that, because I think most people think that if I'm pitching to an investor, like I live near Silicon Valley, so I talk to a lot of the young entrepreneurs, and it's they just want to know the numbers. They want to know the numbers. And I tell them the true story of Airbnb. The original Airbnb pitch from Brian Chesky was to Y Combinator, which is a seed investor, early stage investor in Silicon Valley. And Sam Altman, the founder of Y Combinator, said he thought it was the stupidest idea he had ever heard. Airbnb at the very beginning. But he said that because of their resilience and their tenacity and how clever these co-founders were, he wanted to be a part of whatever journey they were going to go on, whether or not the Airbnb idea worked out. So that's a good reminder that, like you said, people invest and back you, not just the features of a product.
Correct. Besides, I feel like when you're investing, you also trust the founders to have to change that product and adapt to the market. So it ends up being exactly what you said. You're betting on the person, not so much on the product that they might have at the moment.
This also brings up a sort of an abstract concept that's hard to get across for a lot of people, and that's passion. I often tell people that I can write books on public speaking. I can teach you methods on how to get your idea across in a way that is more clear, concise, compelling, but I can't teach passion. And if you don't have passion, some kind of enthusiasm for something that you're doing, something about the product or the company or your idea, then that's going to come across too. And that's going to be a big disadvantage. I noticed that what gave you a lot of strength in that pitch competition, and I thought that it was part of your presence, is you walked into that room and you said to yourself, or you told the filmmakers this before you walked in, that you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for Venezuela. And so to me, I thought it really showed that you're bringing a lot of passion to this topic. It's not just a cool idea that you want to express.
It is true. It is true. I mean, I think that when you do something because it is meaningful to you, it shows. It shows, and that connects with people. I think that it is completely different when we present and we share an idea on something that doesn't matter to us. But when it is something that is actually coming from our hearts, that is too hard to hide. That comes across and that connects with people. So I always do that. I feel like one of the things that we have done most since we started this company is that we have always been honest with people.
Hmm.
Even when we started and we didn't know anything about business, I was the first one probably on the Entrepreneur Challenge at NYU who stood on the stage to say, I don't know the answer to your question because I have no business in background. I don't even know what it means. But I promise you that if you let me go to the next stage, I'll find out. And I've always been honest on every answer that I get and on every pitch that I get. And I think that helps me because then whenever I speak, I'm speaking from my heart and people can tell.
There was a scene in the documentary when you are practicing in front of your mom in the hotel room. So tell us how long or how many times did you practice your pitch? And what is the role of practice in a good presentation or a pitch?
Well, for me, I don't practice too many times. I think that after a certain point, if you keep practicing, it just sounds like you rehearsed it and then it stops feeling genuine. So I only practice to the point where I know the transitions well. When I remember what part of the story is going to come next and when do I need to press the clicker, when do things need to come up. But as soon as I have that all set in my head, I stop practicing.
Huh.
So I did that with my mom. I think in China, probably I would say about four or five times. And it was really funny. I don't know if you caught that on the documentary, but my mom doesn't speak English.
Yes.
But, she would listen to it over and over again. And then the funny part is that one of the times I did mess something up on the story. And then she was like, I don't know what you're saying, but that's not what goes in there. She was like, that's the part that goes later on with a different slide. So it's good, she was catching up with what she could.
But you definitely know how you're going to start, how you're going to close. You've probably got that committed to memory on every pitch, and the transitions and how you're going to start and what you're going to say on each slide. But you're saying at some point, if you try to over rehearse every line, it's going to sound robotic and lose that authenticity.
Exactly. Even I tried to do a lot of bullet points for each slide. So I know what points I need to get across. But then how I say each of them every time might vary. I might find different words that come to me at the moment. So that part I leave up to the moment. But at least, the message that needs to get across, I do plan for that.
And more often than not, there is something about that moment that you can bring into that story, but not if you have committed everything to memory and you're just kind of going sentence by sentence. And then what I see happen all too often is someone forgets a sentence, they forget a paragraph, and they skip it, and it completely befuddles them. They get very confused, even though the audience never really knew what they were intending to say anyway.
How about when people start clapping and they take away 5 seconds of the time?
I think it was more than your mom got the longest ovation of anyone.
If I had learned everything by heart, I wouldn't have been able to make up for it then. So that's when it comes in handy to not have memorized every word.
You also had a little psychology trick that I think you've played on yourself. You said nobody else in the room knows that you're nervous if you don't let them know. Tell us, how do you do that though? How do you walk into a room? I'm sure even today, you're probably still nervous when you're meeting certain people or investors, but in a global pitch competition, you've got everything writing on it. Take us through the mindset. How did you build yourself up in your own mind before you enter the room?
Wow. So, I have to say, the thing that I always do, no matter what, I am Catholic and I'm a really big believer. So every time I go in, I pray, I trust God, I trust that everything's going to go fine. Yeah. And then I tell myself that up to this point, I have done my best. I did everything that was in my hands. I practiced, I got my transitions well, I have my slides that I love, and I'm all set with what I could do. So, the rest is just the moment. And I think that, giving myself that peace of mind that I have done my part, and now what happens is completely fine, for the better or for the worse. I am proud of myself and I have no regrets of my preparation this far. That I think gives me the calm that I need to really, enter the stage and start talking. I remember that I got that advice of not letting anyone, reminding yourself that nobody knows that you're nervous except for yourself.
Right.
Well, the first time that I went to a Model UN conference and I needed to speak, and I remember that I was so nervous. I was writing the little paper with my name on it to ask to be added to the speakers list. And then as soon as they added, and I still had like 4 more people ahead of me, I could feel like my hands started shaking, like sweating, and I didn't know what to do. And I was so nervous. And this friend of mine, he was like, just don't let them rush you. When they call you, like walk, like you own it. Walk at your pace, get to the front, and then you start talking. Don't let anyone rush you. Don't show them that you're nervous. And I have done that ever since. I never rush to talk at any place. I take my time so that I can tell myself that everything is okay.
You own it. I love that. Own the room, right? Own it. Yeah, I think that's what you said in the documentary too. You said, you just take your time, walk up there like you own it. I highlighted that line. That's one of my favorite lines. Walk up there like you own it.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. Nobody knows what you're feeling inside. And I cannot tell you how many times I work with senior executives, pretty high level people, very high level senior leaders who express to me privately that they're very nervous about giving a presentation or giving a speech. And yet when you watch them, they own it. They're rocking it. Yes. And then later they tell me, oh my gosh, I did terrible. I did this, I did that. And, me and other people in the room were looking at each other thinking, did we just watch the same speaker? Because people get so negative, right? There's a lot of negative self-talk that goes up in here. And yet the performer that others are seeing is very different. So own it. I love that kind of confidence. I haven't asked you, bring us up to date. Where are you in this process now that you won the competition in 2019? Tell me about Synthetics and where we are.
Yes. So in 2019, Synthetics was developing a solar powered path to make nylon. In order to develop that process, I had used artificial intelligence. And then we realized that we could have a larger impact offering the artificial intelligence platform to the chemical industry, because then you could use it not just for nylon, but for other processes to accelerate the development of sustainable ones. And with that idea in mind, we completely shifted. I started developing the software platforms. We're currently under pilot plans with different chemical companies and pharmaceutical companies. They're all testing it. The preliminary results are great. It seems like we are reducing the time, the effort, and the experiments 30%. So that is incredibly good for us. And in addition to all of that, we have been fundraising. So we just completed our pre-seed round. Our seed round will be mid-2021. And yeah, we're just looking forward to bringing even more people on board in our team and making sure that the platform can enter the market by the end of this year.
Wow. Congratulations on all your success. Before I let you go, speak to young entrepreneurs or aspiring leaders. What is the role of public speaking, communication skills, and something that I've been focusing on recently more and more is writing skills? How important are all those communication skills to an entrepreneur or to an aspiring leader, regardless of what field they're entering?
I think that we have to remember that ideas are useful only up to a certain point if they're in our heads. At some point, they have to get out of there, because when we have a big idea, it most likely means that we cannot accomplish it alone. And if we need somebody else's help, if we need somebody else's support, we need to bring them on board, then we need to communicate to them effectively what it is that we want to do. So communicating an idea effectively in a way that everyone understands it and in a way that resonates with what other people need, that is public speaking. And those are writing skills that we need on our day-to-day lives. I think that we often don't realize that our words have a huge impact. Everything we say throughout the day, we might be having an impact on every person that we're talking to. So we have to be careful with those. We have to be careful because we can hurt people with those. We can say the wrong things. We can, take people on the wrong direction. And we have to also own the consequences for that. So I wish that our generation, our society would realize the power that our words have, and we would take it as something that we have to be careful with and something that we need to be great at, because good is not enough. We need to be great at it.
Daniela, thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. You are an inspiration. Own the Room is an inspirational documentary. I hope all entrepreneurs see it. I wish you all the success in the world, continued success with Synthetics. Give my best to your mom when you talk to her. Tell her there is a communication coach in America who's wildly impressed with her daughter's public speaking skills.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate beyond words you taking the time to talk to me. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Daniela. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Daniela Blanco, a chemical engineer and winner of the world's most prestigious pitch competition. For more public speaking advice from the best of the best, subscribe to Carmine Gallo TV. I'll bring you new videos every week.